Good morning, everybody. Hey, happy Independence Day weekend, and I hope you have a safe and a peaceful one. Is that a sign for me to finish? I normally don't get applause at the beginning of the talk. Well, I don't get applause at the end either these days, but anyway, welcome. Independence Day is that time of the year when we just pause a bit to celebrate and to appreciate the freedom we have. Living here in this country, we have freedoms that people all over the world don't have. And there are 48 million people in the world today that are still enslaved in some way or in bondage. And India has the greatest population of these people. Yet here we are, and basically what freedom means is that we have the opportunity to make choices for ourselves. The Declaration of Independence of the United States of America says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident," and I paraphrase here for the sake of inclusivity. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, it starts out by saying we hold these truths to be self-evident. Basically, what that means is that what was just said is beyond definition, it's beyond debate, it is beyond revision, it is as standard as a law of nature, that all people are created equal, and everybody should have the right to pursue happiness and to obtain it. Now, that being said, we have the freedom to make choices, yet I must remind you that we're students of life and we're not graduates of life. We're learning how to master life. We haven't mastered life as yet. We haven't arrived. We're still on the path. We're learning. We're learning how to make good choices. We're learning how to utilize our power to choose. Now, a good illustration of this is my cousin Ozzie. For those of you who don't know him or haven't heard of him, you'll get to know him if, as time goes by. But every year, he and Lars Iverson go up to northern Canada to moose hunt. They drive up to Canada, then they hire a pilot in a pontoon plane that flies them into the northern lakes. The pilot drops them off for a week, then comes back and picks them up. Well, this year, when the pilot came back to pick him up, he discovered, much to his surprise, that they had bagged 3 moose. The pilot told them there's no way that this plane can handle the weight of 3 moose. You're going to have to leave one here. And both Ozzie and Lars argued vehemently against the pilot's decision. And they used as a basis of their argument that the year before, the pilot let them bring 3 moose back of the same size on exactly the same plane. And the pilot says it can't be done. And Ozzie said, he let us do it last year, therefore we expect you to let us do it this year. Well, finally the pilot relented, and he said, okay. So they loaded up the moose on the pontoons, strapped them to the pontoons and went across the center beam, and they took off down this long lake. And the pilot kept picking up speed and picking up speed. He had it at full throttle, and they started to elevate, and just for a while it looked like they were going to make it, but then the engine sputtered, it died, and the plane took a nosedive. They crashed into the brush along the side of the beach. They were trying to get over the trees on the other side of the lake, but they didn't make it. Thank God nobody got hurt. When they climbed out of the plane, Lars Iverson turned to Ozzie and said, do you have any idea at all where we're at? And Ozzie says, yeah, this is the same place we crashed last year. Now, the spiritual principle here is, well, first of all, they say if you do the same thing over and over and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. The spiritual principle is that if you do a specific thing, you're going to get a specific result. If you do that specific thing again, you're going to get a specific result again. It's the law of cause and effect, an immutable law of nature. If you do one thing, you're going to get one thing. But how many times, many of us in here, have we gone through life and continued to do the same thing over and over, getting a disastrous result of some sort, yet not stopping to think about what caused it or how to adjust our actions in the future? The law of cause and effect is actually nature's way of taking care of us. If we do something and we get a disastrous result, we can learn what caused that, correct our actions, do it again in a different way, and get a pleasant result. It's really quite simple as that. We have the power to choose, which is one of the most incredible powers we have. Of all the rights I listed earlier, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all of that narrows down to one thing and one thing only, and that is our power, our right, our freedom to make choices for ourselves. We can choose the kind of life that we want to live, and we can choose the kind of person that we want to be. There's nobody outside of us dictating that. The only stipulation is our choices cannot violate the God-given rights of another person to do the same. If that happens, we're either incarcerated or done away with. I guess that's still going on, isn't it, that capital punishment thing? So our power of choice is so important that the person that you are today, in the life that you're living today, is the result of the choices that you've made in your life up until this point in time, for the most part. The person that you're going to be in the future, in the life that you're going to live in the future, for the most part, is going to be the result of the choices that you make from this point going forward. And as I said, we're students of life. We're learning how to make good choices that can maximize the quality of our life. Now, I'm sure there's been times for all of us, mainly when we were younger, when we chased happiness. We thought, if only I can get this, I'll be happy. Or if only I can do that, I'm going to be happy. And we just go through one thing after another, and we get what we want, and the happiness is there for a short period of time, and then it wears off, and we fall back into a state of unhappiness. The quickest, easiest, and most efficient way to increase the happiness in your life is to, first of all, define with great clarity what it is you value. So what is it? What do you want? How do you want to feel? You have the freedom to choose. From a spiritual aspect, we move the material world as getting things to make us happy to the inner world as to the emotions that will make us happy. They'll give us a sense of well-being and give us a true feeling of being alive. What is it you want? It's all up to you. There comes a time, I believe, for me anyway, when we just need to stop for a moment and start looking at the things around us that are truly pleasing, that do give us a high quality of life, instead of chasing after things that don't. There's a story about a wise old cat, and he was walking down the path, and he came across another young cat, and the cat was chasing its tail, round and round in circles, trying to catch its tail. And the wise old cat said, "What are you doing?" And the young cat said, "Well, I just came from cat philosophy school. I graduated, and I learned that happiness is in my tail. So when I catch my tail, I'm going to be happy forever." And the wise old cat said, "Well, I went to cat philosophy school as well. And I learned that happiness was in my tail. But I also learned if I just go about my life, it follows me wherever I go." And that is a fact of the matter. Wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved in, there's always something there that is uplifting. There is some beauty that you can appreciate. There is something that you can express your happiness to. See, the world doesn't bring us happiness. We bring our happiness to the world. And I'm oftentimes amazed at people that have gone through difficult times, yet they're still able to find a semblance of peace of mind, a sense of well-being, and a high degree of happiness. And one of these people, my hero, was Christopher Reeves, Superman. It seemed like he had it all. He was tall, he was handsome, he was rich, he was very popular, and he was looked at by children all over the world as the hero. And then he had a horseback riding accident, and he fell and was paralyzed from the neck down. I cannot imagine life being shifted from where he was to where he went. But he did. Now, he had the choice to think, my life is horrible. I don't like who I am. I don't like my existence. This is a lousy deal. I'm a victim. But he didn't. He chose to do something. He said during his time of coming to realize that he would never be able to use his body again like he had once before, that there were two things he needed to be happy. And the first was he needed to feel like he was growing, like he's becoming more, that he had this potential in him and he had to be utilized. He had to evolve into something greater, which we all do. We all have that basic desire. And he said the second thing he realized is that he had to do something to help other people. He had to feel like the world was a better place because of him. I saw him speak at a motivational seminar at Kemper Arena. This was back in the 80s. And he had a vertical gurney that they wheeled him out on. His body was very stiff, immovable. He had to speak with a plastic hose in his mouth that kept him breathing because he couldn't breathe on his own. And they wheeled him out to the stage, and he could only utter maybe 3 or 4 words before he had to stop and gasp in and take more breath in. But it was probably one of the most articulate and the most stunning talks that I've ever had, because he just talked about how when something happens that takes life away from you as you've always known it, that there's new life to be had. That no matter what your condition, no matter what shape you're in, no matter what is happening, you still have life. And if you have life, you have the potential and you have the power to choose things that make it purposeful and make it fulfilling. It was just an incredible talk. Now, many of you at this point might be going through a difficult time in your life. Things might not be working so well for you. You might think that life has nothing more to offer, that you've gone through it all, that something has happened, some tragedy of sorts, and it's changed forever. And that's your choice if you want to think that way. But also you might be at a point today where you choose to make a change, where you choose to do something that moves you out of the position that you're in and puts you back in the path that leads to a greater sense of well-being, that maximizes the quality of your life, and that brings you happiness. See, that is our freedom. No matter what, you always have the power to choose to move forward, to choose to live your life to the fullest with the capacity that you have. For those freedoms, we say thank you. As I said before, there's 46 million people in the world that don't have that freedom. There's people in India, they borrow $150 for one thing or another, and the debt never gets paid off. They continue to work for their employer for the rest of their life, just paying off the interest on the money that they borrowed. And when they die, their family inherits the debt. And it continues on, and it continues on, and it continues on. They don't have the freedom to choose something that will increase the quality of their life. They're enslaved, they're in bondage. We have that freedom. And I think it's our responsibility to pray that other people in the world will have that freedom as well. That the entire global population, united, has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And basically what that means is, if you're alive, you have the right to your life. If you are living, you have the right to freedom. And if you're free, you have the right to not only pursue happiness, but to obtain it. That is our spiritual gift from God, the Creator. As we move into meditation, think about different parts of your life. There might be some things you want to move beyond. There might be some things you just want to express an incredible amount of gratitude and appreciation for. But most of all, just be glad that you're alive, that you're sitting here, and we can move forth to help others discover that same thing. We'll now move into meditation.